Mabuhay, Philippines! How all of you? Are you enjoying your lunch? You know, I got a bit worried. I was sitting there because I was told by the organizers that I was speaking at 1 o'clock. And so I was sitting there and the clock kept ticking and ticking. And they were giving awards to everybody and recognizing everybody. And I was worried right at the end, they'd call me up and say, Past President Siva, thank you for coming. Bye-bye. And, you know, the thing about time, you know, and speaking at audiences always reminds me of this visit I had to a Rotary Club. And, you know, I'm renowned in my district for, you know, they always say past presidents and past governors, they just start speaking and they never stop. So I'm renowned for that. So I told the president, I said, excuse me, President, but how long do I have to speak? And he said, well, Dr. Siva, you can speak for as long as you like, but we all go back at 9 o'clock. I hope that you won't leave too soon today. I'm here to share my thoughts on the Rotary Way with you. And talking to a group of such eminent and august people in such a large congregation always reminds me of my visit to Tokyo many, many years ago when I was invited to speak at the Pan-Pacific Association on private education, and I was the keynote speaker. And when I arrived there, I was ready, pumped up, ready to go, tell them a good story, and the organizer came to me and said, "Oh, Siva-san, welcome to Tokyo." And while he kept doing, I kept bowing back, and he bowed, and I bowed. And at that point, that musical tune, you know, from Limbo Rock played in my head. How low can you go? How low can you? I thought that's what he was trying to do, okay? And then he said to me, he said, "Siva-san, the audience don't speak English." And I thought to myself, thanks for telling me now. He said, but don't worry, we have got a translator, okay? Fukunishi-san is very good in English. You can translate anything for you. So I said, thank you very much. And I went to him and said, Fukunishi-san, do you want a text of my speech? And he said, no, I don't need a text of your speech. I said, thank you very much, because I don't have a text of my speech. He said, Siva-san, you a speaker, slowly. I a translator, everything you say, don't worry. So I said, very good. And off I went to the podium, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming here. My name is Siva. And then I speedily went on to crack a joke. You know, because when people have their lunch, they don't want to be bored to death. So I told them a very funny story. And as I recounted this story in my own mind, I was really happy because it went very well. And I finished the joke, and they all looked at me. And then, of course, I realized they don't understand what I'm saying. So the translator, he said, and while he was talking, I thought to myself, this is fantastic. You know, Japanese people surely must not suffer from constipation. Am I right? A lot of bowel action there. You know, I mean, you see a nice girl, you go to her and say, darling, how are you? You look really very beautiful. You know, can I take you out for dinner? Will you marry me? I love you. A Japanese guy probably goes, I love you. I have this in my head always. I don't know why, but it just plays back in my head over and over. And anyway, so I come back to the story, and he said, and of course, those of you who speak Japanese here, please don't be upset, because that's not Japanese. I don't speak a word of Japanese, okay? Sounds very convincing, isn't it? Yeah? Yeah. In Malaysia, whenever I go into Japanese restaurants, they get very amazed because I walk in, they go, and I go, and let's go and sit down. And then they come to me and they talk to me in Japanese thinking that I understand what they just said. So anyway, he went on and he told the story, but he said it very quickly. He went, and everybody started to clap, very rapturously, and they started to laugh. And I thought, this is fantastic. I thought, this is amazing. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. A 3-minute story told in 30 seconds. I said, no wonder the Japanese are so successful. They take what other people take a very long time to do, they do in a very short space of time. Don't think like that. It's very bad. Okay? I'm not talking about those things. Okay? I'm sure that at night with their wives, they take the normal time like every one of us. Okay? But anyway, so after the talk, I went to him and I said, Fukunishi-san, I need to ask you a question. And he said, oh, Siva-san, what is your question? I said, can you please explain to me why is it the Japanese language is so magnificent, so succinct, so brief, so wonderful? And he said, what do you mean, Siva-san? I said, because I told a very long story, and then you made it so short. How did you do it? He said, Siva-san, you talk about your joker. I said, yes, I'm talking about my joke. He said, actually, your joker, very long, very complicated. I don't understand your joker. So I tell everybody, an important speaker from Malaysia just told joke. Please clap hand and laugh. Now, I like telling that story because it's true, and you cannot imagine my shock and horror. And so every time I have to speak to an audience and I have a translator, I just make it really short. I don't tell them any more jokes because it's not going to go across. Here we are in Rotary. And last night as I sat down and I marveled at your fellowship and I marveled at your wonderful entertainment. Wasn't it wonderful entertainment yesterday evening? Yeah, I think they deserve a big round of applause from everybody. It was wonderful. And I thought to myself, this is a wonderful thing, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about. My love for Rotary. We're all here because we love Rotary. I spoke some time ago, actually, at the multi-district pets in Cebu. Some of you were there. And of course, it was amazing that in the Philippines, you can organize an event as big as that on Valentine's Day. Isn't it? In Malaysia, if we tried to do that, there'll be a lot of dead Rotarians. Because I told my wife I'm going to Cebu to speak, and she said to me, you can't go, it's Valentine's Day. We've been married so many years, and you've never missed a Valentine's Day. And I told her yes. But I have to go because I promised them I'd come. And she said, Siva, do you love me? And I don't know, why do wife ask questions like that, And, your girlfriend never asks questions like that, right? Your girlfriends always say, I love you, I love you, I love you. And you don't have to say anything. You just go, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, until they marry you. And then once they marry you, they keep it, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? So I said, of course I love you, darling. That's why I married you. And she said, well, then will you die for me? You know who I hold responsible for this? Bruno Mars. Right? The bloody fool went and sang that song, I'll fall on a grenade for you, fall on a train for you, And ever since he sang that stupid song, women all over the world ask men, will you die for me? So I said to her, honey, I love you greatly. You are the love of my life. You are the synthesis of everything that is beautiful in my life. But I will not die for you. And she said, what do you mean you won't die for me? What kind of love is that? I said, that is an undying love. Right? And so I thought that was the end of that conversation. I was going to bed. And as I was going to bed, I thought it's not fair. Okay, it's not fair that this conversation just happens like that. You know, they just ask you, do you love me? And so I was sleeping. And my wife, you know, is also sleeping. And I lean over to her and I said, you know, before you go to sleep, I want you to know this, right? It's strange that when we get married, you know, our wives, who were our girlfriends once, they say, I like you just the way you are. And then you get married, you know, you go, it's a wonderful day, you have all the people there, and then you walk up the aisle, okay, you stand on the altar, everybody sings the hymns, and then you get locked in to matrimony. And then you kiss each other. And then after that, all your wife tries to do is change you. Isn't it? Yeah, I don't like you when you're like this. You better change. All right? You know, you used to be late when I was your girlfriend. Now don't be late anymore. I'm your wife. Show some respect. And I wonder why this happens, you know. They love you like to bits when you're their boyfriend. You marry them and they want to change you. And then I realize the problem is with the wedding ceremony. Yes, think about it. I know you're sitting down there and going, my God, Siva is going to tell us something very important now. Okay, I'll tell you. Okay, it's with the wedding ceremony. Because, you know, ever since she was a little girl, she dreamt of the day when she'll walk up the aisle with her daddy. And then he will lead her to the altar. And then they will sing the hymns. And then we will marry. So she plays this, she rehearses this in her mind. You know, walking up the aisle, standing on the altar, hearing the hymns, aisle, altar, hymn. Some of you are a bit slow, okay? But you see, that's where it gets into her head. Aisle, altar, hymn. Yes. Now you see, I can see that look on your eye. You go, damn! Should have had a civil wedding, gone to the registry and just signed up. Okay? Anyway, so I thought it's not fair that she should ask me this question. So I turned around and said to her, I said, honey, I want to ask you something, right? You said you love me, okay? But you know, if I died tomorrow, what would you do? Would you marry again? And she said, no. I won't marry again. I love you so much. I said, what will you do? She said, I'll go and stay with my sister. I was so happy to hear that. You know, men always say to their wives, you know, marry again and things like that. They don't mean it. If we die, we want you to be a spinster for the rest of your life. We don't want you to find happiness or anything like that. You know why? We gave you the happiness. It should be enough for a lifetime. Okay? Yep. I know the ladies here are going, I'm going to kill this bastard after this talk. Okay? So, I'm sleeping now. I'm sleeping. I'm happily in that dream world, thinking about beautiful Cebu Island. And in the middle of the night, she wakes me up. And she says, I want to ask you a question. And I said, what? You know, she said that conversation we had is not over. So I said, what do you mean it's not over? She said, you said, what would I do if you died, right? So I want to know, what will you do if I died? I said, what do you mean, what will I do if you died? She said, well, will you remarry? And I said, honey, I love you. I told you that. Mine's an undying love. I'll never remarry. And she said, well, what would you do? I said, I'll go and stay with your sister. Now, I know there are a lot of lady Rotarians here who are going to be very, very, very upset, okay? So I'm putting this picture for you, okay? This is what makes Rotary beautiful. Can you see this picture? It's a wonderful picture. It's a painting by the British artist. Her name is Rosa Branson. Hangs on the wall of the trustee's office in Rotary. It's a picture that shows hungry children being fed. It's a picture that shows people who suffer all kinds of calamities because of floods, earthquakes, typhoons, being brought relief by caring human beings, by Rotarians. It's a picture that shows people all over the world realizing that we are one and the same. We may come from different places, but we have the same hopes, the same aspirations for a better life, no matter where we come from. And we want to make the world a better place, a world that lives in peace, a world that lives in harmony, and a world that is gifted with the gift of peace. This is what this painting shows, am I right? It's beautiful. That's my screensaver in my office. And every time I get annoyed because something's not going right in my life, I look at this picture and it re-energizes me, because right at the center of the picture is the rotary wheel, and behind it is a beam of light that shines like a beacon into a world that needs heroes like us. It's a beacon that shines hope into the lives of millions of people that you and I don't know, but you and I help because we are Rotarians. And this is what does it for me. Our founder, Paul Percy Harris, you know, I like talking about Paul Harris because he was a lawyer. And he is proof that not all lawyers are bad guys. Okay? People have terrible things to say about lawyers, but I always tell them that some of the greatest people that ever lived were lawyers. Abraham Lincoln was a lawyer. And imagine what Abraham Lincoln did with his life. Yeah, born into abject poverty, he rose to the highest, most powerful office in the land. And when he became president, he fought and continued to fight a civil war to free the slaves. When he could have just said, heck, I've had a hard life, now I'm the most powerful guy in the world, I'm going to have a good time. He could have just said that. But instead of that, he put everything on the line, because he said, listen, when Jefferson, when Washington, when John Adams, when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, and when Jefferson wrote these beautiful words, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, Lincoln said, something in that equation is not right. Because when Jefferson wrote that, he owned slaves. So how can you own slaves and say all men are created equal? And so Lincoln said it's time to put that right. And he gave everything he had, finally his life, for what he believed in. Lincoln was a lawyer, and he changed the world. He moved us from a paradigm of slavery to a paradigm of liberty and freedom. And Paul Harris is no less a man. He wrote this. I want you to think about what he said. It's amazing. He said, God has made us. God has made us. We all believe that? God has made us. Yeah? Look at Pope Francis, a man who could have driven and be driven in a beautiful limousine worth millions of dollars, and he sat in a bus and went and paid his hotel bill and carried on with his job as Pope. Do you know why? Because he realizes the title is meaningless. It's the job that's important. It's what he's got to do that's important, because that's why he became a man of the cloth in the first place. I want you to think about that, because that is at the core of what I have to say to you today. That is at the core of why we're here. We're here because we're Rotarians. We're here because Paul Harris said that God has made us guardians of the earth. We are the guardians of the earth. This planet is our heritage. And God knows in the last 100 years, we have destroyed what has been our heritage for 1,000,000 years. In 100 years, we have brought this planet to the gates of hell. And you can feel it every time you walk out of the door without air conditioning. It's called global warming. And who brought that curse upon us? Mankind has brought that curse upon us. So we have destroyed this heritage. Harris says, God has made us guardians of the earth. This planet is our heritage as well as our legacy. This is what Rotarians remind everybody of. It's not just what we inherited, it's what we are going to leave for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and 1,000 years from now, what is going to be is what we here in this room leave behind. It is our legacy. Let us keep it in peace. Fill it with love. Honor it with service. Let's preserve it. Isn't this wonderful? I put it to you, my friends, that this is our mission as Rotarians. Every time we say that we recognize, okay, that as Rotarians we are here to fulfill a destiny, and what our destiny is, then this is our destiny. Let me share a simple fact with you about our destiny. I always like talking to Rotarians because, you know, in this room you find the pride elect of the human race. People who care, people who give a damn. Outside this room is hell on earth. There are 7 billion people in the world. 7 billion. According to the United Nations, 1 billion of those people live in abject poverty. They live on nothing. They live on less than $1 a month. Another billion live on less than 10. Another billion live on less than $100 a month. So you could say that half the human population is not in a condition to take care of itself. They don't have to die to go to hell. It's right here for them. Every day when they wake up in hell. And you know how many Rotarians there are in the world? I like this number, 1.2 million. Yeah, whenever you ask Rotarians, how many Rotarians are there in the world? What do they say? 1.2 million, right? You can ask Rotarians, can you recite the 4-way test? Some will stumble, some might be able to do it. You can say, can you tell me what the object of Rotary is? Some might stumble, some might tell you. But when you tell them, how many Rotarians are there in the world? Everybody knows. It's 1.2 million. You know why? Because it's been that same figure for about 20 years. It's not changed. The train stopped and we all got off. It's been 1.2 million for a long time, right? And then occasionally we say things like Ron, Burton is saying, we'll get it to 1.3. I'm sorry, Ron, a heck of a lot of difference that will make from 1.2, right? And I want to ask you this question. 1.2 million Rotarians out of 7 billion people. You take that number, multiply it by 100, and you have 120 million people. You multiply that number by 300, and that's 360 million people. If you take that to be the number of people that are trying to make the world a better place, that are trying to do something to help people, take into account the Lions, the Kiwanis, Habitat for Humanity, and all the other altruistic organizations in the world, that's 300 million people out of 4 billion people that can do something about it. That's 1 in 10. So the next time you say to somebody, hey, come and join my Rotary Club, and he says, sorry, I'm busy, I don't have the time, don't be disappointed. You know why? That's 9 out of 10 people. You have to keep calling. Why? Because you need to find the 1 out of 10 who is like you. The odds are heavily stacked against us. We are in a war to fight to preserve the dignity of the human race. And we are outgunned, outnumbered. Don't you ever forget it. And I want to tell you this. You, when you go back home tonight and go to sleep, before you put your head on that pillow and close your eyes, say this to yourself: I'm a damn good person. You should say that to yourself. And I always tell my friends, because we Rotarians, including me, we are very good at saying, that guy is no good, that Rotarian didn't do that, that fella didn't turn up for his job. But can I tell you this? Even the worst Rotarian is still a good guy. Isn't that true? Because we live in a world where most people just don't give a damn. And we do. In a desert of destitution, poverty, hunger, homelessness, there is an oasis. It's a small oasis of wonderful people called Rotarians. And we, from that small oasis, bring hope to the rest of the world. And you might think, hey, but we just small oasis. The desert is very big. But just remember this. All you need is a flicker of light to bring brightness into the most darkest place. Light illuminates, even though it is small. Darkness is pervasive, but no matter how great the darkness, it is no fight for light. And we are the light. Remember that. I want you to feel that in your heart. Now let's talk about the people that don't give a damn. The people that you've called up and have said to you, I'm not interested. I have no time. I want to tell you about them. Because you know why? Most people, they're born good. I don't think anybody is born to become Adolf Hitler. I think the influences that control our destiny make us who we are. So why is it that people just don't give a damn? So let me tell you. You go home tonight, thanks to cable, the wonderful news networks of the world, CNN, Al Jazeera, BBC, okay? For those of you who are mildly insane, Fox News, okay? You watch it, and, they bring human tragedy to your living room. So you're sitting down there, watching a nice television show, and suddenly this announcement comes. Have you seen this before? The following scenes may be disturbing to some viewers. Have you seen this before? Yeah? The following scenes may be disturbing to some viewers. So there you are, having your crispy pata, okay? By the way, it's my favorite food. If you like me, give me some, okay? And my wife always tells me that I'm going to die prematurely, okay? And I always tell her I should have been dead already, all right? Because when I was 30 years old, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And when I went to my oncologist, he said to me, he said, you know, Siva, you have to go for chemotherapy now, and we'll see how well your lymphoma responds to the chemotherapy. And if it does, you'll be all right. If it doesn't, you'll be dead. So I suggest you have a good time until then. All right? That was my life. And fortunately, because of God's will, I'm still standing. Okay? Every day. Yeah? That you have and that I have is a gift from God. And so I sit there and I'm watching my television, and then it says, the following scenes might be disturbing to some viewers. And I wait to see what might disturb me, and the next thing you know, they show you this. You know? The following scenes might be disturbing to some viewers. And you see this. The following scenes might be disturbing to some viewers. And you see this. The following scenes might be disturbing to some viewers. Are you disturbed? Yes. The following scenes might be disturbing to some viewers. The following scenes might be disturbing to some viewers. You know, the guy that took this photograph, he won a Pulitzer Prize for journalism. They gave him a Pulitzer Prize. You know, he took the picture of a vulture waiting to eat this child, and then he went back to America and he won the Pulitzer Prize. And 2 years after that, he committed suicide because he couldn't live with the guilt of not having done something. The following scenes might be disturbing to some viewers. You know what I find disturbing? I tell you what I find disturbing. I find it disturbing that only some viewers are disturbed by this. Shouldn't the news networks put a notice that says, every bloody person in the world should be disturbed by this? Shouldn't they? But they don't. They just say, the following scenes might be disturbing to some viewers. You know why? Because there are a lot of people who are not disturbed by this. They're not disturbed by this. They watch this on TV and they see these people, and then sometimes, you know, the news networks, they're very kind. They put a small blip there that says live. That means the child is dying while you're watching. Right? It's live. You know, sometimes, you know, you leave it to Fox, they might even get you to vote on whether the child should die. Okay? That's how mad the world has become. You know, this is live. And you watch it. And a lot of people I know, they're not bad people, but they watch this on TV, and then they get up, and then they go to their wife, and they say, can you get me some hot chocolate? Okay, thanks. And then they sit back, and they go, oh my God, sorry, switch channel, American Idol's on. They can move from this to American Idol. It's more important in their life to see whether or not Jessica Sanchez is going to win it. That's how their life has become, you know, insignificant and petty. But they don't realize it. They think they're living very important lives. You know, why? Because it doesn't disturb them. Are they bad people? No, they're not. They're not. They're just numb. They've lost feeling. You know? And you know why they've lost feeling? Because their paradigms about what is good and what is meaningful has changed. I come from a very poor family. When I was 15 years old, I had to work in a restaurant, okay? Serving customers so that I could earn some money to help my family. And then every day in my life from the time I was 15 years old, I have to work in order to get an education. And I relied on a lot of people to help me. And because a lot of people helped me, I am who I am today. I said, please, can you help me? My teachers helped me. Sometimes I had no money to pay my exam fees, and I'd go to somebody, and my teacher say, here, I give you $30, go and pay your exam fee. My life was, please help me, help me. And one day, through the grace of God, and through the effort that I put in, my hand transformed from being like this to being like this. I was in a position to give. And I praise God for turning my hand from this to this. And ever since that day, when my hand became this, I pray to God that I will never become this again. And so, to ensure that, I try to get a lot of practice doing this, giving to people. You know? And that is why when Sid told me that you have a project where you're building somebody a home, all right? I don't have a gazillion dollars, but I told him, I said, how much would a home cost? And he said, you know, it'll cost so much, which is in Malaysian ringgit about 10,000 ringgit, you know? And I figure that's how much I spend a month on myself, being happy, you know? And I said to him, Sid, I'll give you $10,000, okay? Doesn't mean, please don't misunderstand, it doesn't mean there's greatness written all over me. It just means that I'm making a bargain with God and saying, there, I gave 10,000, make sure it stays this way. God, make sure my hand stays this way. Don't turn it this way again, because I know what it's like to be like that, you know? So I said, keep it that way. And you know, the project, Sid gave his presentation, was fantastic, okay? But I want to tell you something. You know, the homes that you're building for people, it's not just about giving them a roof over their heads. You give somebody a home, you give them hope. When you give them hope, you transform their lives. And when you transform their lives, they become different people. They become like us. And one fine day in the future, those kids, they will become Rotarians, and they will build more homes for people like their parents. And you have not just changed the life of a family, you have changed the life of every single person who is destined to be born in that family for generations and generations to come. That is the power of Rotary homes. Never you forget that, okay? So, I was talking about why people are numb, why people don't do anything. I'll tell you why. It's because they suffer from what I call a paradigm of powerlessness. You know, I can talk to you about this personally because I saw and I experienced it within my own family. You know, I talk to people sometimes and I say, why don't you do something about this? And they say to me, you know, Siva, what can I do? What can we do? You know, there are 20,000 children dying in Africa. What can we do? We can't help 20,000 people. What can we do? So they're not bad people. It's not that they don't want to help, but they feel they cannot. They feel they don't have the power to help. And can I tell you, when people think like that, it's very difficult to change their mindset. Mindsets are very powerful, okay? The power of paradigms define us. They limit us. And most people have this paradigm of powerlessness. So I'm going to take you on a journey with me. Go back to the time when you were a child. Can you remember? For some of us, it's a long journey. For some of you, it's a shorter journey. But I remember when I was a child, anything was possible, right? I remember Reuben. Reuben said to me when he was a child, you know, he's quite an old guy, all right? You will realize that after I tell you what he told me. He said that it was during the Second World War, okay? And he reminisced with me in a very fascinating way. He said the Japanese, and there were dog fights in the air, and he said he was oblivious to the fear because he was a child, and he'd just run out with his friends, and they'd be watching these dog fights of the planes, shooting at each other, Then he looked at me and said, wasn't it great? And I said, Reuben, I'm only 50 years old. I wasn't born yet. But I know what he's saying. When you are a child, you have no fear. When you are a child, you have great hope. Rotarians are people that have somehow preserved this childlike quality of hoping for the best. When you're a child, everything is possible. You believe in these guys, right? There was a Superman, a Batman, a Spider-Man, whatever hero you marveled at, right? It was incredible. I mean, if today you told me, Siva, who's your hero? And if I said, Superman's my hero, you'd look at me and say, Siva, something's wrong with you. Okay? Superman is a grown man who wears his red underpants on top of his trousers. That's just not right. Okay? And I say to you, we believed in these people. Why? Because they were marvelous. They could fly all over the place. They could do wonderful things. Am I right? And nobody could stop them. And the best part is, they had these superpowers, and they always used these superpowers to do good things. Imagine if Superman became a bank robber. If Superman became a bank robber, he'd be richer than everybody else. Because nobody would be able to catch him. He couldn't rob all the banks. But he used the power for good. So what? Hey, hold on. That's an interesting idea. Power for good. Sounds strange, isn't it? Because all the powerful people we know use it for bad. They are corrupt, right? Power tends to corrupt. Absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. So this idea of power and good seems like an oxymoron. Doesn't make sense. But that's what these guys were. They used their power for good. They're superheroes, am I right? Let me tell you, isn't that what we Rotarians do? We use our power for good. Somebody said to me, Siva, you speak so good, you should be a politician. Go back to Malaysia, you can become a minister, and I always tell them no. You know why? Because I want to use my power for good. I don't want to be corrupted by power. In a world where everybody is self-service. You go to the supermarket, self-service. You go to Chowking, self-service. McDonald's, self-service. Everywhere, self-service. Here we are. Service above self. We're a rare breed. We have broken our conditioning, But don't make the mistake of thinking that these people want to be bad. Don't make the mistake of thinking that these people just, they just couldn't care less. It's not that they don't care, it's that they've been conditioned into thinking otherwise. And paradigms are very powerful. Paradigms are what you're told from the time you're very small. I'll tell you a little story, I always crack a joke. It's about 3 guys who are trying to conquer the world. One guy is an American, one guy is a Russian, and one guy is an Irishman. Okay? And we always take the Mickey out of the Irish. We always make the Irish look stupid. So the American says, boy, we've got a plan for conquering the world. We're going to send a rocket to the moon. And from the moon, we're going to attack the whole damn planet. Oh, they thought that was a fantastic plan. Then the Russians, of course, don't want to be undone by the Americans. I'm sorry, this is stereotyping. And the Russian said, comrade, I am sorry to tell you. And if you think that's a good accent, it comes from the James Bond movies. Okay? He said, I want to tell you, your plan is not so good. Because in Russia, we have better plan. We are sending rocket to Mars. And from Mars, we are attacking the whole solar system. So the Irish fellow didn't know what to say. And so he said, look, In Ireland, we have an even better plan. We're going to build a rocket and we're going to send it to the sun. And from the sun, we're going to attack the whole universe. So they told him, bloody fool, if you send the rocket to the sun, the rocket will explode. He said, no, that's why we have a common plan. We'll send the rocket at night. Yeah? So, I always tell, I used to teach law in a law college, and some of my students, they are now judges in Malaysia, okay? And I'm telling you the story, it's a cautionary tale. Because one of the guys who was in my class, who is a judge now, he put his hand up. This is years ago. He put his hand up and he said, sir, I have a question to ask you. So I said, what's your question? He said, well, even if you send the rocket at night, by the time it reaches, it will be daytime. So, if you have any legal disputes to settle in Malaysia, try to settle out of court, is my advice to you, okay? Right? Or do what the Sulu Sultan is doing, just go there and take it, Now, I'm sorry if that's sensitive, I'm only joking, okay? Now, so let's talk more about paradigms, You might think that I'm telling you a joke, it's a very funny story, but it's amazing, it's about us. We have all kinds of things that limit us and our behavior and the things that we do. And we use words like tradition. We use words like that's the way we've always done it to defend what we are doing. And it becomes part of our practice. And I want you to think about it. My mother, my late mother, she was a highly educated person for her time, And she was a school teacher. And I am the man I am today because of my mother. She taught me everything I knew. But yet she was very religious. And she believed in whatever the religious practice of Hinduism was. And when I was a little boy, as I told you, we were very poor. So there wasn't much place in my house for a prayer altar. So in my little room, there was my bed, and right next to me was the prayer altar. So God and I, we lived together for many years, And every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, my mother would come to pray. And the Hindu prayer ritual is a marvelous thing. It's it's like a Disney cartoon movie, all right? Because the door will just burst open in the morning and my mother will come in with fumes flaming, with incense burning, and she'll come in, shh, and then she'll be ringing the bell, ding, 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 ding. This is at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then she'll start singing songs to God. And my mother has a voice that can shatter glass, okay? And this is in the morning at 6 o'clock. And until today, I tell you, every morning at 6 o'clock, I wake up. My wife thinks there's something terribly odd about me because at 6 o'clock, I'm up. Then I get up, I go to the toilet, okay? And of course, those of you, at my age, that you go to the toilet more than one time at night, okay? When you're young, when everything is working fine, okay? You go to the toilet, it's like a fire hydrant, it goes, shh, okay? When you get to my age, you go to the toilet and you kind of just lean over and let gravity do the job, okay? And so I get up in the morning, okay, and I walk around the house, okay, and then I come back and I go back to sleep. And my wife thinks this is the oddest behavior. She thinks something wrong with me, but there isn't, because for the better part of my life, since the time I was born, 6 o'clock in the morning, shh, ding, 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 every day. So, when I was about 13 years old, I think, okay, and my mother always thought that I was not a very good son, in the sense that she'd go to temple, I wouldn't follow her. I'd prefer to play football or hockey than go and pray, So when I was about 13 years old, I got into this discussion with my mother about, can I talk to you, mother, about God? And I tell you, you should look, I can still see the look on her face the first time I used the word God. She was just overwhelmed with emotion. She thought, finally my son has been touched by God. He wants to know. She said, come. She took me into her bosom. She hugged me and she said, tell me, what do you want to know? And I told her, I said, I just need to know something. I need to know, is God everywhere? And she said, Siva, God. And you know, whenever people talk about God, their voice goes very low, like Abba, you know? Very low, like the Phantom of the Opera. You know? And she said, God is everywhere. I said, thank you, Ma. I'm happy to know that. I just need to ask you something more. She said, yes, of course, Siva. What do you want to know? I said, if I did something bad, would God know? And she said, Siva. And you know, my mother was very, very, very concerned when I asked that question. Because, you know, boys, when we get to 13, we discover certain things. And when we spend a longer period in the bathroom, it's not because we have a newfound sense of hygiene. Okay? And so she said, Siva, tell me, what have you been doing? So I said, I've not been doing anything. I just want to know if God will know if we do something bad. She said, Siva, God is everywhere. He is omnipresent. He is omnipotent. Every other omni adjective she could find, she used. And she said, He is everywhere. You better be careful because God will see what you're doing. And I said, okay, fine. I won't do anything bad. But what if I didn't do anything bad? What if I only said something bad? Would God hear? He said, Siva, God will hear. I said, what if I didn't say it loudly, Amma? I said, what if I just went quietly and went, would God hear? He said, Siva, God's hearing is very powerful. He can hear anything in the universe, even an ant crying, God can hear. You whisper, God will know. Don't say anything bad. Don't do anything bad. So I say, what if I didn't do? What if I didn't say? What if I just thought something bad in my head? What if I just thought something bad? Yeah, in my head, there was a thought. What would happen then? He said, Siva, don't even think bad. Because God knows everything. God can read your mind. God will know it the minute you think it. God will know it the minute you think it. So I said, are you sure God will know it the minute you think it? She said, Siva. You know, mothers give you that look for a few minutes to keep you in suspense. God will know it the minute you think it. So I said, okay. I said, if you don't mind then, can I ask you one more question? She said, okay, what is it? I said, tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, when you start to pray, can you leave the incense outside, keep the bell wherever it is in the drawer, come into my room very quietly, not a word, just come very quietly, stand in front of the altar, and start thinking the songs. Because if you think it, He will know it. You know, my mother stopped talking to me for 3 months after that. She just stopped talking to me. Silent treatment. You know, I was like Russia, she was like the United States. For 3 months. And that experience taught me something. It taught me that when something is deep inside somebody, no amount of logic will prevail. No amount of logic. If they are used to it and they believe in it and that is their ritual, you cannot change it. And unfortunately, rituals are very much a part of everybody's life. A guru sat down to pray one day. And as he sat down to pray, oh, he said, a cat came into the forecourt and started making a lot of noise, you know. Some of the cats that escaped from last night's presentation. Okay? And so this cat was very noisy. He was a bit like Mr. Mistopheles, you know. Meow, meow, meow. So the guru got very upset, called his followers, said, please. He said, how am I to pray if this cat makes a nuisance of itself? Tie it up. So they tied up the cat. They grabbed the cat, they tied it up. So the guru started to pray. And every day, knowing that the guru might be angry, every time the guru headed to the prayer room, they caught the cat and they tied it. So, tie the cat, pray. Tie the cat, pray. This became their practice. One day, the guru died. And the assistant guru took over. And the assistant guru said, Guruji is no more. But we must always follow what Guruji has taught us. Does this begin to sound like some of your past presidents? Guruji said that the holy cat, when did the cat become holy? That the holy cat shall be tied before we start to pray. So every day they caught the cat now, they tied it up, but because it was holy, they had to do a ceremony for the cat. Ting, 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 holy cat, holy cat, holy cat. Then they prayed. So every day they had one ceremony, followed by another ceremony, because you must not forget the power of the holy cat. One day the cat died. And when the cat died, everybody panicked. They said, my God, we cannot pray because we don't have a holy cat. So they went into the village to look for another cat. They caught the cat, they brought the cat back, they tied it up, and then they started to pray. This is called ritualism. The meaning for which we did something in the beginning disappears. And then we just continue doing it. This is the ritual of everybody's life. It is the ritual of the people out there that don't care about people who suffer, because their ritual is there's nothing we can do about it. And when did this ritual start? Because when the guy was a small boy, he'd see a beggar, he'd put some money, 5 peso in his pocket, he'd give the beggar and he'd walk on when you're 5 years old. There's nothing in your head except he needs help. And whatever you can help, you help. But as he's 5 years old and he's walking, the next time he walks, he's about 8 years old, he gives the 5 peso. His uncle standing next to him says, don't give your money to that beggar. He will just go and drink with your money. He will just get drunk with your money. Don't give it to him. What did we do here last night? Did we not get drunk? Or is the moral of the story, it's okay to get drunk when you're rich? You see? These things begin to condition us. And so, the child that has an open heart for giving becomes the adult who has a closed door and says, sorry, there's nothing I can do, because he cannot be helped at all. That's what happens. And what else diminishes us? Our practices, our rituals. You know, we have a Rotary ritual, many rituals we have. Some people don't understand it. So we must make an effort to explain it to them. You get a new member to come to your meeting and you say, welcome to our meeting, okay? And please, okay, the Sergeant at Arms comes up with a sash, sometimes carrying a mace. Praise silence for the president of the Rotary Club of XXX. And the president starts making his announcement. Welcome everybody. Today we have guest speaker, Dr. Siva, very important guest speaker. Very important Dr. Siva is our guest speaker. We are very honored to have you here because you're very important. Okay? I, as the president, have no announcements to make because in the last 3 months we have not carried out any projects. But don't worry about that. We have very important speaker here, Dr. Siva. He's very important for us, okay? That Dr. Siva is here all the way from Malaysia. He's very important, okay? So the people whom you've invited to your meeting, what do they see? They see, I'm sorry if this gets censored, but because it's live, you have to hear it anyway. They hear bullshit. They don't hear anything worthwhile listening to. And so they're wondering why this grown man with a stick is standing there and another grown man wearing a medal is telling everybody he has not done anything for 3 months. That's what they see. You know what the mace represents? It represents the power of Rotary. It represents when you say, pray silence for the president of the Rotary Club. That means you're telling everybody, listen everybody, please shut up and listen to what the president has to say, because we are doing important things and you have to come and help us because the community needs us and this is an important message, and if you don't pay attention, you're not going to get all of it, and this is going to enrich your life, and that's why you're here, so pray silence. And so the president then says, we are building Rotary homes, we have enriched so many lives, we have done this, we have done that, we've done this, you know, and then the mace makes sense. The ritual is meaningful. But if you do the ritual, but not the content, then it doesn't make any sense. I go to many Rotary clubs in Malaysia where there are 5 guys sitting around a coffee table, and the only announcement for the day is Dr. Siva is our guest speaker. And so I wonder why you have to wear the president's jewel, because you're not doing the job of the president. Why are you carrying a mace? Because you're not doing the job of Rotary. Do you agree? So make our rituals meaningful. But let's talk about the people that don't care, yeah? You might say, okay, now we've heard to Dr. Siva, we can go out there and convert all these people. We can change their minds. So I want you to look at this. Do these lines look straight to you? This is a bit of optical illusion, yeah? Do the lines look straight? No, they don't. They look crooked, am I right? Correct? Your conscious mind tells you it's crooked. Now I want you to close your eyes. I want you to close your eyes and say to yourself, I know that this Dr. Siva is playing tricks on me. I know those lines are straight. I command you, my brain, to see those lines as straight. And then look at it and see whether it's straight. Is it straight now? Okay. Another one. Okay. How many black dots are there on the screen? Can you please count? Please count. If there's anybody who is irritating you, okay, just give them this and tell them to count the black dots. Okay. You and I know that there are no black dots. Am I right? Do you see them? You see them. Are they there? Now tell yourself, there are no black dots. Say it. There are no black dots. There are no black dots. Do you still see them? Yes. You know why? That is the extent of power your conscious mind has over your subconscious mind. If you think that just by telling yourself that you're going to do great things, you're going to achieve it, you're sadly mistaken. Because your subconscious is the conditioned mind. Your conscious is meaningless. And so those people that you see and that you're trying to invite into Rotary, all right, don't just tell them, come to Rotary, you'll see the difference. You have to bring them to your projects and you have to show them the difference. You have to uncondition their mind. You have to make them believe that they can make a difference. Just by telling them that they are going to make a difference, it's not going to convince them. Because their conscious mind has no control over what they believe. Your belief in God, my mother's belief in God is subconscious. Just because somebody comes and tells you, this is wrong, this could not have happened, that it doesn't change your mind at all. Because the conscious has very little power over the subconscious. Do you understand that? You need to convince the people that you want to bring into Rotary by your actions and not by your words. So my friends, it's time for us to help these people who are not in this room, who are not with us, who are out there, to re-examine their lives and what contribution they can make to the world. I'm going to end my discussion, all right, soon. But I want to ask you this question, right? I always like to talk about our founding fathers of Rotary because, you know, we always have great traditions in Rotary, you know, and we always look at this picture, okay, of Augustus Lowe, Sylvester Shield, Hiram Shorey, and Paul Harris. They are our founding fathers. What do we have in common with them? Can you tell me? They're all wearing nice jackets like us, nice ties, right? What else do we have in common with them? They all believe in serving the community, okay? Can I tell you, that's all lies. That's all lies because Gus Lowe and Hiram Shorey left Rotary 2 or 3 years after they joined. But yet we put up their pictures and call them the founding fathers. It's only Paul Harris and Sylvester Shield who built Rotary to what it is. So the retention rate of the original 4 was 50%. Isn't it? The first 4 members that joined Rotary, only 50% stayed. If you think about it. But I tell you something, all right? They planted the seed of an idea. And I tell you what you have in common with them. One day, just like them, you and I will be a picture on the wall. That's what you have in common with them. We don't live forever, you know. And I'm a past president. And, you know, and in my club, everybody always likes to say good things and wonderful things about me, all right? And my constant challenge in life is what, you know, is not to believe them. You know why? Because the day you start believing what a wonderful, great human being you are, you stop being a Rotarian. Our classification in Rotary is active. That means we have to constantly act. We have to constantly serve. Look at somebody like Paen Hachunova. Look at him. Okay? Look at how many years he's been a Rotarian, how high he has gone in Rotary, and how he just continues to be an ordinary Rotarian in his club, doing the ordinary work that needs to be done. Isn't that so? And yet there are past presidents in my club. You go to them and you say, you know, we've got this project, okay, we need your help. And they say, you know, Siva, I'm a past president, no? I'm a past president. Emphasis on past. I'm a past president, you know. In my, you know, and all past presidents, past district governors, you know, you wait for the key phrase, the key phrase, the key phrase. After they say, I'm a past president, the next thing that will follow is, in my year, when I was the president, okay, wow, huh? in my year, yeah, wow, that's fantastic. You owned a whole year. That's fantastic, man, okay. So what, are you dead now? Why are you talking about your year? You're dead, you can't do anything anymore now, okay. You think about it, right, in my year, you know. And I always tell them this. I say, listen, you know, my friend, I tell you this. Hungry child comes to you and says, sir, I need some food. I'm dying of hunger. You know, child, I'm a past president. In my year, I fed 100 children. In my year, okay? You please think about that. You think about what I did in my year, okay? Okay, thank you. Okay. This is how sensible you sound when you say it. Okay, I'm telling you. All right? After this, of course, nobody might ever invite me back to the Philippines. Okay? But I'm telling you, that's how ridiculous it sounds. You know? Our legacy is to do what we can while we can. Our gift from God is that we can. Is that we are blessed enough to have the power to make a difference. The day we abrogate that responsibility, you don't have to wait to die. You're dead. Because you no longer matter. You're as good as dead. So don't use these big titles as disguises. People use titles like past governor, past district governor to show respect for what you have done. But that is not an excuse for not doing anymore. When you die, the only thing that you will leave is a memory of a life well lived. I had a teacher. He told me once, he said, you know, Siva, people die twice. And I said to him, people die twice? That's amazing, because I always thought they only died once. You know, God knows dying one time is very traumatic. You know, being a Hindu, I can tell you, dying is a very traumatic experience. Because when my mother died recently, okay, on the 1st of December, and interestingly enough, okay, on the 1st of December, I was supposed to speak at a Raila. And my mother, when she passed away, okay, I went to the hospital, I took her body, I sent it home to be bathed and everything. I drove 2 hours to the Raila, gave my talk. I didn't tell the organizers anything, because if I told them, then they'd be giving me condolences, and that would have taken up 1 hour, okay. I gave my talk, and then I came back for my mother's funeral. And all the people in my district said, you know, that's a fantastic thing. And I always tell them, that's not a fantastic thing. You know why? Because that's what my mother would have wanted. Because my mother is dead. I have done everything that a good son can do for his mother. My mother is dead, and I'm happy that she had a good life. Okay? Now we have to take care of the people who are still alive. We have to do the things that we have to continue doing. But when I sat there in the funeral, okay, for the first time I was in the middle, you know. And I tell you, when you're 50 years old and you have to go through a Hindu funeral, it's no joke. It's like gymnastics. The priest will make you do all kinds of things, turn and everything, you know. And when I turn, all the bones are creaking, you know. I'm not kidding you. And so I'm there, and then I'm observing the people, because normally I'm one of the crowd. So here I'm next to the body, and I'm observing the people. And the minute they come in, my aunties and all, you know, it's amazing, you know. They come in and go, oh, Papa. And then like instantly they switch channel, they get up, and they go to talk to somebody. So how's everything going? Everything okay, wonderful, okay, good. Yeah. So it's like crying is mandatory, you know. If you don't cry, you're a bad person, you know. And if you go to like, you know, Christian funerals, it's very solemn. I like observing people at funerals, you know, they always stand, they're very solemn, very respectful. Nobody ever goes to a funeral and say, oh my God, he's dead, died already. How he died, okay? Oh, yeah, he died, yeah, he passed away. Very sad, very sad. You know, he was a good man, yeah, good woman, yeah, very sad. Sometimes you hear this. Oh yeah, he died. You know, deep down, he was a good man. You know what that is? Deep down, he's a good man. It's code for he was an asshole. People just don't say it. Yeah? Everybody is profoundly respectful at funerals. You realize that? They're very respectful. You know why? Because as Shakespeare said, you know, one day we will all journey to that undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns. And it puzzles the will and makes cowards of us all. When we go to funerals, we see the prophecy of the things that will come to pass in the future. That's you, a few years down the road. Of course, in my case, it might be, 10, 20 years down the road. In some cases, it may be further. But the point is, it brings your sense of mortality into close focus. And when you see that, now, I've got to be ready to meet God. I've got to be ready to meet my Maker. It makes us very humble. So I said to him, sir, I understand, but you said people died twice. How do people die 2 times? He said, Siva, the second time you die is when people stop speaking your name. See, today I spoke about Abraham Lincoln. He's not dead. Whatever he said is still with us. We still believe in his ideals. We still share his values. We talked about Paul Harris. He's not dead. Because we still believe in him. We still believe in his ideals. It goes on. And I know years from now, nobody is going to remember past President Dr. Siva Ananthan, PhD, DBA, LLB, honors, FABE. You can put all the things you want after your name, including your Royal Highness if you want. Okay? You can put whatever you want, but people will never remember that. People will never remember how rich you were. 100 years from now, 200 years from now, 500 years from now, nobody will remember Bill Gates as the richest man in the world. They will remember him as the man that gave everybody a personal computer. That's how people will remember you. Legacy is not written by wealth. It is written by deeds. And I want to tell you this. I wear the badge Rotarian very proudly. And I am happy to call myself Rotarian Siva wherever I go. I don't call myself anything else. I introduce myself as Siva, Rotarian Siva. You know why? I use the word Rotarian as often as I can, because I know years from now I'll be dead. And when I'm dead, years, many, many years after that, my grandchildren, somebody will say, this home was built by the Rotarians. And she said, my granddad was a Rotarian. She might not even remember my name. The name Rotarian will never die. You will never die. Your deeds will never die. The sands of time will never erode that. Believe that. And that is why call yourself a Rotarian proudly and drop all the other things. I want you to stay close to your mission. Our mission is to serve humanity, But sometimes how we share that mission is very important. The way we sell Rotary sometimes to our friends is boring. We sell it without conviction. We sell it without passion. And because we do it like that, they don't believe what we are doing is important. I want to share a simple story with you, okay, about this judge, okay. He had 2 boys come up to him, charged with selling drugs. And the judge looked at them and said, boys, you boys look too young to be selling drugs. And the judge said, well, I don't know what to do with you boys. You're just too young. So I'm going to give you another chance. I want you to go back to where you come from, and I want you to tell all your friends to stop selling drugs. And so the 2 boys go away. 1 week later, the first boy comes back. His name is Jimmy. And so the judge looks at him, Jimmy, how many of your friends you turn away from drugs? And Jimmy said, Judge, 10. And he said, how did you do that? He said, Judge, I drew these 2 circles. I drew the big circle and I drew the little circle. And I told my friends that this is your brain before you start using drugs. And this is your brain after you use drugs. And the judge was very happy. He said, very good, Jimmy. Okay, let him go. Second guy comes. This guy looks really naughty. His name is Leroy. He says, Leroy, what about you? He said, Judge, I went back to the ghetto. I saw my homies. And I said to them what you said. I said, you better stop using drugs. And all of them boys stopped using drugs. And the judge said, well, how many is that, Leroy? And he said, all 100 of them. He said, you got 100 drug dealers to stop selling drugs? He says, yeah, Judge, I just told them. He said, how did you tell them? He said, well, I just drew this picture. I just showed them this picture that Jimmy showed them. Okay, I put the small circle first, and then I put the big circle. And I told them, this is your ass before you go to jail, and this is your ass after you go to jail. Now, I don't recommend that you use this as the Rotary recruitment technique. But you get the gist of what I'm trying to tell you, okay? You need to sell Rotary with a little bit more enthusiasm, yeah? If you believe that what you're doing is good, that what you're doing is worthwhile, that what you're doing will make a difference in the lives of people, then you got to share it with that same enthusiasm. Whenever you talk to people about why should I become a Rotarian, they talk about the privileges of being a Rotarian. Yeah? What is the privilege? And I tell them, you know, the privilege is very simple. Just read the object. Sometimes I look, you know, I go to pets and train Rotarians. Say, what are the objects of Rotary? How many objects are there? And people tell me, you know, oh, there are 4 objects, there are 5 objects, all kinds of funny numbers will come out. You know, Rotary is a very simple organization. You know, it has only one objective. One objective. And that is to foster the ideal of service as the basis of worthy enterprise. That's it. That's the object of Rotary. We do that in our club. We call it club service. We do that in our community. We call that community service. We do that in our vocation. We call it vocational service. We do that in the world. We call it international service. And we do that with the young people, and we call it service to new generations. But we only have one objective. And if you really think about it, that's a fantastic objective. To foster the ideal of service as the basis of worthy enterprise. You know what the privilege of being a Rotarian is? Rotary makes you a better person. Rotary makes you all that you can be. You believe that serving yourself is the best way to serving others. Therefore, you become a good professional, a person of integrity, respected in your profession, respected in your business. You become a good friend to your club mates. And so you have great fellowship and you have great times with your fellow Rotarians. You become a good citizen and you help your society. And that society becomes better and better and better. And when you die, you leave the world better than when you found it. And you try to make everybody in the world get along. We don't need to fight wars. We don't need to kill each other. Because at the end of the day, time will kill us. You don't need to shoot anybody. He'll die, rest assured. It's only when. So my friends, when you tell people, please come to Rotary, and they say, what are the privileges of Rotary? Oh, you know, you can network, you know, we got a big organization, you know, you can sell computers to us. This is all rubbish. The privileges of Rotary are the privileges of telling truth, sharing fellowship, building friendships, building beneficial relationships. It's a privilege of making you better than you are. It's the privilege of leaving your society better than it was. It's a privilege of promoting peace and goodwill around the world. Isn't that privilege enough? So my friends, I lied to you earlier when I said I was going to finish. Okay? Now I am going to finish. I'm going to ask you a question. There are 20,000 Rotarians in Philippines, more than 2,000 Rotarians in this district alone. Is your mission complete? Is it? Well, my English professor once said to me, asked me a question. He said, Siva, is there a difference between the English word complete and finished? And I said to him, no, sir. If you have completed something, that means you finished it. And he said, sorry, Siva, let me clarify, elucidate, and then enlighten. And I said, thank you, sir, for using 3 adjectives that mean the same thing. And he said, Siva, when you meet the right woman and you marry her, your life is complete. If you meet the wrong woman and you marry her, your life is finished. And then he said to me, but Siva, if your wife finds you with another woman, any woman, then your life is completely finished. So my friends, the question I wish to pose to you is your mission in Rotary complete? Or is it finished? Or is it completely finished? I would like to tell you that it is none of the above. We have many, many, many miles more to walk. And you know when your Rotary mission will be complete? The day your life is ended. The day your life is ended, that day when you meet God, God will tell you your mission is complete. Until such time, soldier on. The key to our lives is a very simple word. The key to my life is a very simple word. The word is unless. I wake up in the morning and I say to myself, unless you, Siva, go out of that door and try to help the people that through no fault of their own are unable to help themselves, their lives will be misery. Unless you tell your friends about it and also enthuse them with your passion so that they too will carry out this mission, many, many, many more lives will be misery. Unless you go to District 3830 and share this message with them, they would have gone to sleep after lunch. But on a more serious note, the mission is yours. Unless you wake up every morning and say, I'm going to make this world better, many people will suffer. Unless we as Rotarians, right here in the Philippines, had started the effort to eradicate polio, many, many children, millions of children, will today have that dreaded disease. Unless you decide that you are going to make a difference in the world and make tomorrow more glorious, more effervescent than it is today, then tomorrow is going to be a dark day for millions of people. The American poet R.L. Sharp once wrote, "Isn't it queer that princes and kings and ordinary folk like you and me, and clowns that caper on sawdust rings, are builders of eternity." Imagine that. We are builders of eternity. To each is given a shapeless mass and a set of tools, and each must build before his time is over a stumbling block or a stepping stone. Rotarians world over every day build millions of stepping stones to make millions of people's lives better. And that is something that I think is worthwhile remembering. God bless all of you, and God bless Rotary. Thank you very much.